Good morning, everyone, and here we are again, back in the new year, and you can hear, probably, I'm going to excuse myself for coughing. I'm getting over a bout of pneumonia, which I've had for the last 3 weeks. So my holiday, my Christmas, my New Year was not so great in one way, but really great in another, because somebody asked me this morning, the highlight of my Christmas, and the highlight of my Christmas was Christmas morning, watching my 3-year-old grandson opening his gifts and just being with family and just enjoying and having a great time, even though I did collapse a bit after Christmas, I have to tell you. So excuse my throat, my chestiness, and we're going to do this anyway. So happy new year. Here we are again, and hopefully we won't have too many breaks this year. We're just going to go straight through the year and do this now every week. I hope you all enjoyed your vacation and your new year, and how many of you made New Year's resolutions, and how many of you are going to keep them through the year. You know, years ago, I always used to make a New Year's resolution, at least one, if not half a dozen. And I would be determined, absolutely determined, that I would, you know, keep those resolutions. And of course, being human, I failed probably every time, almost every time anyway. So in America, where I live, where we're recording this show, we're about to, or has he already? I'm not sure. Is he president yet, Mr. Trump? Or about to be?
About to be.
He is about to become. And those of you who receive my emails will see that, you know, my darling assistant Carolyn put up there, what do Rosemary and Donald Trump have in common? Well, we'll talk about that later on. So we're going to talk about soul signs. Not many people know about soul signs, and I mean soul signs. I don't mean anything to do with astrology, although everything is connected. We know that all things are connected, and so I'm not dismissing astrology by any means, and in fact I'm very interested in the subject. But soul signs, and what we don't know, and what I discovered through my spirit guide Great Eagle quite a while ago, was that each of us, each soul born to this earth, is born, created from a pocket of energy, a certain type or pocket of energy. And there are basically 5 different types of energy that our soul is created from. There is the earth energy, there is the fire energy, there is the water, and then there is the air energy. So they are the elements of earth. And then there is a 5th, which is the energy of sulfur. So those 5 different energies do actually rule our planet, they do rule our sphere, and they do rule us in one way or another, because each soul is created from one of these pockets of energy. I don't want to get too technical, and we're going to discuss this subject more as we go on through the year. But soul energy, I am an earth energy. I'm an earth sign. Within each of the different types of energy, there are 3 different soul types. I'm just going to talk today about earth, the earth energy. There is the hunter soul. There is I'm trying to think what my daughter is now. There are 3 types of energy. And there is the warrior. My brain has gone blank. It must have something to do with the fact that I'm having trouble breathing. I'm going to use that as an excuse. And so Donald Trump is an earth soul. He is an earth energy. and he happens to be what we know as a hunter soul. And I, on the other end of the sphere, I am a warrior soul. So we have two different energies on either side, and then a central energy, which is my daughter, which my brain is still gone blank, still can't think of it, but anyway, it'll come to me. I'm supposed to know this subject inside and out, but I'm having a little moment here. And so even though all the earth signs, all the water signs, there are 3 water signs, all of the air signs, all of the fire signs, all of the sulfur signs, there are 3 in each, even though they do have many, many similarities, many similar characteristics, soul characteristics, even though they do have lots of things in common, the way they think sometimes, the way they behave, the way they react, they also have very different ways of dealing with those characteristics and the actions that they are impelled to take. So Donald Trump is an earth sign, and he is at one end of the spectrum, and I am an earth sign, and I'm at the other end of the spectrum. So in some things we are alike. Do I care to elaborate? Not particularly. I'm not a political person. I try not to get involved, certainly not publicly, and with my political points of view, because everybody is entitled to their own points of view and their own way of thinking. But do we have some things in common? Yes, we do, because we are both earth signs. And now we're going to ignore Donald Trump altogether, because, you know, as much as you like him or hate him, and I think, you know, there's not many in betweens, you know, as far as I'm concerned, he is a spiritual being having a human experience, and he's having this own experience and apparently doing remarkably well. And I am a human being. I'm a little tiny soul here, and I'm having my experience. And will I allow him to affect me, or will warrior souls that he's close to or connected with, will they affect him? It remains to be seen, and that's the choice that we make. I will talk about one very good friend of mine who is a hunter soul, and my darling Chris, and she's not able to listen this morning, I know, because she's fighting the good fight somewhere. She's having a little battle of her own this morning, as it happens. But Chris is a hunter soul, and Chris gets herself into hot water all the time, because Chris tends to believe, being a hunter soul, that she knows what's best for everyone else. And of course, she doesn't always know what's best for everyone else. Not only does she believe that she knows what's best for everyone else, she also, being an earth sign, because earth signs are action takers, being an earth sign, she wants to put into practice the things that she thinks are best for everybody else. So naturally, she comes up in her life with a few battles from time to time, and some of those battles are worth fighting, and some I personally think are not worth fighting. But we all have our characteristic traits. We all have our ability to either make plans, take action, move forward and carry through with those, which is what earth signs generally do. Or as water signs are the compromisers of our soul system. Water signs are those compromisers. They are the people who do make plans, and they do love to make lists. You may recognize yourself, am I a compromiser? Because sometimes water signs will compromise themselves to a degree which is harmful to them. Because, you know, sometimes it's not always good to compromise. Sometimes you just have to, you know, stick to your guns. Of course, earth signs are capable of compromise, but we're less capable. Water signs are much more capable. But earth signs also have this ability to flow and to ebb and to flow and of course, they feed we earth signs, water feeds earth, okay? This is a complicated thing, and again, we're going to be talking about it a lot over the next year, and I'm hoping that you're going to have questions. But one of the issues about soul signs, knowing what soul sign you are, understanding what soul sign you are, and then also understanding the people around you and their soul signs and what they are like. And as soul signs, as souls created from these particular types of energy, there are certain things we do and there are certain ways we react that we simply cannot help because it is inborn in us. For instance, let me give you an example of relationships. Relationships, okay. For an earth sign, and I'm on one end of this spectrum, a warrior soul, the most incompatible soul sign for me is a fire sign. Fire signs, fire scorches earth. Earth can throw out a fire or douse a fire like that. So we're not compatible. Although I do have friends who are fire signs and we find a way to be compatible once you know what you need to do, once you know who you are and what you need to do, you can work it out. But my mother was a fire sign and she was what is known as a retrospective soul. In the fire signs, there is the retrospective soul, there is the bright star, and then there is the dreaming soul. The dreaming soul, one of the most wonderful and lovely soul signs ever, beautiful characteristics, but can always look at things through rose-colored spectacles, and they often do. So they're not necessarily of this world a lot of the time because they are dreaming and hoping and wishing for things. The air signs and fire signs are perfectly compatible together. Air feeds earth. Air feeds fire. Fire needs air in order to survive. So if you're an air sign and you are married to or in a relationship with a fire sign, you can have a great time there because air feeds fire. Whoosh, so it can be very passionate. It can also be very, dangerous, because it can sometimes get out of hand. That fire and air can get out of hand a little bit, but they are very compatible. But now my mother was a fire sign, and remember, I'm an earth sign, and earth douses fire like that. Fire scorches earth. So why, I would ask myself when I was younger, why did my brother get on much better with my mother than I did? Why did one of my sisters get on much better with my mother than I did? And it was only when I learned about soul signs, and it was only when I learned the different characteristics and the different traits that each of our souls have, and each of our souls are motivated by and moved by. It was only then that I began to understand why my mother, I won't say hated me, but certainly disliked me tremendously, and why I could never please her, because she's a fire sign and she's a retrospective soul, perhaps one of the most difficult souls in our soul system, in our earth soul system, to understand and to make happy, because retrospective souls are generally unhappy people. Nothing is ever good enough. Don't despair, those of you who are retrospective souls, because you can, knowing that you are a retrospective soul, you can work at it and you can improve and you can, make sure that you don't allow that natural ability to be always despondent and always disappointed. You can work at that and make things better for yourself and for the people around you. In the same way that I'm a warrior soul, so an earth sign, and I like to fight the good fight, which is what warriors do. But sometimes we fight the good fight when people don't want us to. Sometimes we fight the good fight because, you know, we think that somebody needs help and they don't. And my daughter, fortunately, is an earth sign, so we get on very, very well together. She's a visionary soul, which is what the middle, thank goodness I didn't have to have Carolyn tell me that. I've figured it out. So earth signs are the hunter soul, the visionary soul, and the warrior soul. My daughter's a visionary soul. And so generally we get on really, really well together, both earth signs, and my daughter being a visionary soul, she's very knowing and very sensitive and very aware. But there are times when I want to fight her battles for her, being a mother, and she'll say, mother, she uses that tone with me, mother, I can deal with this myself. And she has to put me in her place. So sometimes, you know, we all can go overboard. What is it that makes you tick? What is it that drives you? What is it that creates either a really great relationship with someone or a really awful relationship with someone? And our soul sign will give us the clues to all of this and will help us in our quest for decent relationships with our brothers, with our sisters, with our parents, with our children. And it will also give us, you know, the opportunity to understand ourselves and why and what it is that motivates us and drives us. It also helps us, I have to tell you, it helps us so much to understand other people. For instance, if I didn't know about soul signs, I would just think that my mother was a mean, awful, horrible individual. I have to say, I might still think that a little bit, but it makes me more tolerant and it makes me more understanding, because I understand that given the type of energy that she is, given the type of energy that she was created from, she also has a wonderful side to her. And all of those things that make she and I clash, all of those things in the past that made she and I clash, are very much due to the fact that I am one type of energy, she is another type of energy. It's a little bit like oil and water. They just, no matter how much you want them to mix, no matter how desperate you are for them to come together, no matter how much you want them, you know, to be a part of you and you a part of them, oil and water, it won't. It just won't happen. So, soul signs. Now, Carolyn wanted me to do some celebrity stuff, I know, didn't you? You wanted me to do the celebrity thing. It's very hard for me to, you know, say, oh, this person is this sign and that person is the other, without knowing them, because with celebrities, they put on a persona. They have a persona that they show to the public, but they also, you know, have that other side of them very often. They're not always as they seem to be. And this year we lost one of our most celebrated and wonderful celebrities who took his own life, a comedian. I mean, this man, everyone loved him. I'm sure you'll know who I mean. Who do I mean, Carolyn?
Now that you ask,
see, she's having a little brain blank there.
Robin Williams.
Thank you.
I knew.
Okay, so everybody loved him. He had this fabulous personality, this wonderful persona that he put on for the public, but he obviously had this other side of him, this side of him that was, you know, hugely sensitive and, you know, and despairing. What soul sign would he be? Without a doubt, a fire sign. Fire signs are those fabulous, you know, out there people. They have to shine. Sometimes they have to shine in a negative way. Sometimes they shine in a positive way. In the fire sign realm here, we have 3 fire signs. We have the bright star, which is that person who always wants to get on the stage. It's that person who always wants to, you know, look at me, here I am, look at me. And I have a very good friend, one of my closest and longest, you know, term friendships. with my friend Kay in England, who is without a doubt a bright star. Look at me, but she's a darling. And even though earth signs and fire signs are not particularly compatible, we find ways to become compatible. If we lived together, if we were partners living together, I probably would kill her or she would kill me. But friendships are a whole different thing, and especially when we are understanding and tolerant, and she understands that she's a fire sign, so she works on it, and I understand that I'm an earth sign and I try to work on it too. So we have the bright star, and we have, what else do we have? We have the retrospective soul, and we have the dreaming soul. She's got it all down. Good for her. So although there are many similarities between all three, and they can each act and react like each other, there are certain differences, major differences, that make them individuals and, you know, make them behave the way that they do. The bright star is rarely despondent, but when they're despondent, they're really despondent. The retrospective soul rarely wants to shine and be bright, but they can be. It's a complicated system. It's a complicated issue, but it describes and it explains why your brother gets on better with your mother, you have a better relationship with your father, why marriages, why you're attracted to someone, very much so, because perhaps they're the same energy as you, but same energies don't always, you know, work out, or why they're opposite, because we know that opposites attract. And, you know, if you know going in to a relationship that this person that you are hoping to have a relationship with, you know what soul sign they are and you know what soul sign you are, you can avoid the inevitable clashes and trauma that's going to come from being with someone like that. Or you can look for someone you know is compatible with you and you know can make it work. So it's soul signs. It's very important that we know what energy we are, what type of energy we are, and what soul signs we are. Yes.
We have Peggy.
We have a question. And hello, Peggy. How are you? Yes, I've been very sick, but getting better. So let's have the question from Peggy, can we?
Well, she's mentioning what she believes that she is, what sign she is. Would you like me to tell you?
Go
or
ahead.
Since you've met her,
go
would
ahead.
You like to?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
She believes that she is a water sign and she is the peacemaker.
I would say so. Yeah, I know Peggy. For those of you listening, I know Peggy, and I would say that's pretty accurate. So because Peggy is a water sign and I'm an earth sign, it's inevitable that we're going to get on, because water feeds earth and earth holds and nurtures water. You think of a river running through the earth, you think of the banks of the river, the earth, holding, nurturing, caring for, and you think of the water running through earth, feeding the earth. So earth and water are extremely compatible. So I'm going to say yes, Peggy, that you are pretty much right on that. Now you have to learn what your children are, what your in-laws are, what your friends are, what all that sort of thing, which tells you why sometimes you clash, even with a great friend, a good friend, why you clash with them, because sometimes you're just simply not compatible in certain things, and why sometimes you have a great, fabulous relationship with someone and never have any arguments or issues or problems. So, okay, so we're not going to talk too much more about soul signs today, because but if you have questions, keep them coming in, because I want to hear about them. I want to hear those questions. And as an earth sign, let me tell you a little bit about earth signs before we quit this subject, because I can tell you earth signs are those people who love to make lists, but we also love to make sure that the things on the list are done. We like to make lists of the things that we need to do during the day, but we also endeavor to make sure that those things that we, our priorities, are done. An earth sign is that person who wakes up every single morning, and I have to tell you, I've tried to change this. I have tried. Not that it's a bad thing, but I've tried to see if I could change it. And of course, when I'm actually thinking about it, there you are, you see, I'm not changing it at all because I'm thinking about not doing it as opposed to doing it. But I can't help myself. I wake up in the morning and the very first thing an earth sign will do is to say, what's the plan for today? Because earth signs are planners, we're organizers, we're action takers. We make things happen the best that we can. Now, if the plan is to do nothing, that's great. But as an earth sign, it's still the plan. We have to have the plan. You can see with someone like Donald Trump, he has to have a plan, even if his plan is to organize everybody else to make a plan. He's got to have a plan. Earth signs have to have a plan. We have to have, something to motivate us, and we make sure that we have something to motivate us. Sometimes I'm motivated by the idea of going to the beach, sitting in a chair and doing nothing but read, but it's a plan. It motivates me. I'm motivated to do these videos that we're doing here. I have to be motivated. Now, an air sign is one of those people, and we all know somebody like this. Maybe you are somebody like this. An air sign is that person who just lets things float, just lets them go. Just think of the air floating on a cloud, all the rest of it. However, sometimes I have a couple of friends who are air signs, and it's very easy to underestimate an air sign because we think they're just going to go along with everything. They're just going to, well, whatever you want to do, it doesn't matter, I'm fine, I'll just go with you, whatever. But remember that some of the greatest storms come from the elements of air. Some of the greatest tornadoes. So sometimes our wonderful, easygoing air signs can shock us by becoming that tornado just for a second there, whoosh, like that. And we're left reeling, wondering, where did our lovely, easygoing, gentle air sign, where did he go or she go? So, it's very interesting. Never underestimate an air sign. But air and fire are very compatible. Our fire signs are those people who they're motivated by emotion. They are motivated by what they're feeling and how they're feeling and how they're thinking. And it's a little bit, fire signs are a little bit about themselves. But as I've said, I have a friend who is probably the best mother I know ever. She has 3 daughters, and she's the best mother ever because she's always thinking about what her daughters need, how they're feeling, how they're thinking. Even when they were little tiny girls and they're now all grown up and one of them has a baby of her own, my friend Kay is always thinking about those girls. But what she tends to do, but it works very well for her, what she tends to do is she tends to think about how she would feel in their situation. She tends to think about what she's feeling in regard to them, and that is what motivates her to nurture them and to take care of them. The most aggressive fire sign is the retrospective soul, and watch out if you meet one of them in a bad temper because you will know it. The same as hunters. Watch out if you meet an earth sign who is in a temper, and particularly the hunter souls who are in a temper. Duck, just duck, just watch out, because you will never forget it. If you come on the wrong end of an earth sign, it's something that you won't forget, because we can be brutal. All right. So, do we have any more questions about that before we're moving on here?
Just a little message from Dean, who says that
Hi, Dean.
he's a fire sign retrospective.
Oh,
the worst of the worst, he says.
Well, well, we've talked about this, Dean and I. I wouldn't have told on you, Dean.
He says, "Oh, I'm doomed."
No, you're not doomed. Here's the thing that happened with Dean, and also another friend of mine. I'm going to mention his first name, Jeff, because if he's listening to this, he'll be chuckling. Jeff is an air sign, a fire sign, and he's married to an earth sign. Bad news, right? Because they are naturally, so opposite. However, his wife, who is a darling and a friend of mine, happens to be a central energy. Thank goodness, because if Jeff and I were married, he certainly would be dead by now, because I would have killed him several times over, although I love him to pieces. But he's a retrospective soul like Dean. However, because he knows about soul signs, because he's been with me and because he's been educated, he's able to help that. He's able to, really work at that. And the same with Dean, bless you, Dean. We've mentioned Dean before, and when Dean first came to see me, had a consultation with me, it was very obvious that he was definitely a fire sign and definitely a retrospective soul, and just thought all the world was against him and that it was everybody else's fault but his. I'm asking him, he has to comment and let me know if he agrees with that. But having been educated by me and having talked about it and having understood where he's coming from and helped along the way to be able to put that retrospectiveness, into a more positive light as opposed to a more negative light. A retrospective soul, Dean, this is for you. A retrospective soul who has raised themselves up, who has, let's say, educated themselves, who has worked to improve. You cannot get a more beautiful and a more shining soul. As with my friend Jeff, who did exactly the same thing. So, Dean, you're not doomed because you've been working on yourself and really working hard on yourself, and it's paid off. Does he have a comment here?
We're like a minute behind, so he's probably hearing that right now.
Okay.
But he said to tell you he was formerly with a warrior.
Well, you see, now here is the worst combination. As I said to you, my mother was a retrospective soul, a fire sign, and I'm a warrior soul and earth sign, and it is a deadly combination. Now, Dean said he was his partner formerly, notice that formerly, was with a warrior soul. So we know that must have been one heck of a difficult relationship. And a very traumatic relationship, because it simply doesn't work. So any of you out there who want to know about relationships, any of you who want some advice on relationships, just email us. We'll give you the name of the book. We'll tell you where you can get it from. The book is called Soul Signs by me, of course, Rosemary Altea. Now, in this book, I keep saying I'm going to stop talking about it, but in this book, there is one thing when you are trying to understand your soul sign, when you're trying to understand the soul signs of the people around you. In the book, I talk about the golden key. There is a key. And the key is, before you decide what soul sign you are, you must determine what soul energy you are. Do not try to read all of the soul signs and say, well, I'm that one. Oh, wait, I might be that one. Because you're going to get confused. You're going to get totally confused. So the key, the little golden key is, first decide what energy you are. Are you an earth energy? Are you a fire energy? Are you a water energy? Are you a, whatever did I say, air? There's air, fire, earth, water. And we're going to ignore the sulfur for now, because those of you who are listening to me, I'm pretty sure, are not anywhere near that last energy. So when you're going through and you're listening and you're looking to see what, you know, what you are, you want to know what soul sign you are, first choose your energy. There are 13, I think, soul signs. And 15 actually, and I was trying to ignore the last 3.
Oh.
There are 12 main, let's say, put it that way. There are 12 main soul signs, and you can get confused because we are, in all of us, in so many ways, a lot alike each other. We always can find something that we have in common with somebody else. But when you decide what energy you are, you only then have 3 choices. So instead of having to decide between 12, you only now are deciding between 3. One of those 3 you will immediately dismiss, and you will know immediately it is not you. So really then you'll be down to 2. And then it's just a question of you working it out for yourself. Again, if you need any help, if you need any encouragement, what are you showing me?
I just thought maybe perhaps you could show this. That would.
And what is it? Because
that is the chart of the elements and the signs.
Of the elements and the signs. And this, people, is the book, Soul Signs. So if you need to know more about it, it's a fascinating subject. If you are having a struggle with a relationship, if you're having a struggle with a partner, or if you and your sister have been arguing and you don't speak to each other anymore, or if you and your mother, you know, are not getting on as you would like, etc. All of those, any relationship that you have. My most important relationships are with my daughter and with my grandson. Luckily, we're all 3 of us earth signs. That's lucky for us, but it doesn't happen in many families. There are a variety of different types of energy all under one roof, and this is where you get the clashes and the anger and the upsets and the arguments and the so on and the so forth. Now, I have 2 brothers. One is a fire sign, one is an earth sign. When I was a little girl, every single Sunday morning I would wake up and there would be fighting at the top of the stairs, and I mean fighting, punching, kicking, etc., etc. They would roll down the stairs, and at the bottom of the stairs my mother would be there at the door with the door open, and they'd roll out of the door, still thumping, kicking, screaming, beating each other up. That's the worst of the different types of energy that we have, when people are seriously aggressive towards one another, and it's all to do with the type of energy that each one is. And again, once you know the energy that you are, you can figure out the different types of energies of the people around you. In your work environment, it's very important, because if you can understand the type of energy that the people you work with are, those people you don't get on with so much, you can first of all forgive them, because they just can't help themselves, nor can you. But secondly, you can also start to think about it. Wait a minute, they just can't help it. You know, he's a fire sign, he just can't help it. And you become more tolerant and hopefully become more understanding. It's a fascinating subject. I'm going to switch. Does Dean have anything else to say? Anybody else have anything to say there about this? Because I'm switching topics.
Oh, we're good.
What?
We're
good. All good.
Yeah.
All right. So we're all good. So we're switching topics because it is the new year, and I want to point out what I'm wearing. I don't know. How can you see this thing that I'm wearing? Can you actually see it? I'm going to move a little closer. Actually, maybe I'll put my elbow in there. Can you see that? No. It's a black knitted jacket, and into the diamond shapes here you can see a little tiny knitted into the fabric, little tiny seed pearls. Why am I showing you this? Why would I wear it today? Well, it's the new year, you see. And I was thinking, you know, about past years. I was thinking about past people that I've met. I was thinking about the clients that I've had, some who have had a huge impact on me, and some not so much. But there is one lady who comes to mind. I may have mentioned her before, but I'm going to mention her again because it is the new year. And as much as we want to remember all of the good and all of the wonderful things that have happened to us, and I'm one of those fortunate people because I've had a lot of good stuff happen to me. And all the good stuff negates the bad stuff. I learn from the bad stuff. I try to learn from the good stuff. But I've had some wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experiences. One of those wonderful experiences, a wonderful experience for me, but perhaps not for the lady that I'm going to talk to you about. This lady lived in the north of England where I used to live. Excuse me. She was a mother. She had 4 children and she had a husband, and she was a caregiver. She worked in an old folks home, dealing with people who were perhaps incontinent, some people who had Alzheimer's, all sorts of different things. She was a wonderful, wonderful person. Her first son, she had 3 sons and a daughter. Her first son was killed when he was, I think, 8 years old. He was hit by a car playing outside of their home on the pavement, and a car going too fast hit the curb, came up onto the pavement and killed him outright. Her second son was killed. It was a crib death, a cot death. She woke up one morning. He was, I think, something like 8 or 9 months old, and she found him, unfortunately, dead in his crib. So the years go by. She's dealing with the loss of these 2 sons, but she has a son and a daughter left. I may have told this story before, but it's the new year, and it's me remembering. It's me remembering all of those people who have come to me for the one thing that I do, thank God, truly, thank God, that I do well. And I have Gregor standing to my right side here, as usual, listening to this. We've helped many people in these circumstances. So it's about remembering. So years go by. She now has a teenage son and a daughter, a little bit older. And the daughter's getting married. And the son is a soldier working in Northern Ireland. And he decides he's going to come home on his motorbike for his sister's wedding. And he is killed on the road on his motorbike, again, outright. I'm sure I've told this story before. What I haven't told you before, I think, is that this woman came to see me quite often. And we talked about her children, and we were able to connect with the 3 boys. Her husband, not long after the 3rd son was killed, had a massive stroke. So now here she is. She's lost 3 children. She has 1 daughter left. And she's still working as a carer because she cannot afford to give up her job. But she's also having to care for her husband at home when she can. And he's had a severe stroke, so now he can't walk, so now she's having to lift him and to feed him and to all the rest of it. Here we have a woman who, the tragedies in this one woman's life just so hard for us to understand. And I know that there are many of you listening, and I know that there are many of you who know people who have had similar lives, similar situations, similar awful, awful times. This woman had every reason to be miserable. She had every reason, excuse me, to be unhappy. She had every reason to never see joy, to never open her eyes and see the light. She had good reason to just lay down and never get up again. And that's how many of us would react, lay down and never get up again. But this woman was one of those who was thankful. She was joyful. She was sensitive. She was caring. She was loving. She was way old before her time. She was worn down before her time. She came one day and on one of her sessions, and she brought me a little purse that she'd made, a little tiny purse. And she'd embroidered an eagle on the purse. She said to me, I want to give you this because this is to thank Grey Eagle for all of the joy that he's given back to me. I want to thank Grey Eagle for this, incredible gift that he's given, that he's allowed you to share with me. That was one of those moments. And then another time she came and she had a parcel wrapped in tissue paper. And she was very nervous and she said to me, Rosemary, I don't want you to say that you like it if you don't like it. I don't want you to, but I made this for you. And I opened the tissue, and here was this beautiful jacket with the little tiny pearl seeds that she'd knitted for me. And how long she'd taken to knit it, I don't know. Now, I'm a knitter, and I can tell you, black is the worst thing you can knit. It's hard on the eyes. But here she was, and she'd knitted me this beautiful jacket, which over 20 years later, believe it or not, still fits me. And over 20 years later, still gives me the memories of this incredible woman who had suffered all of this heartache and tragedy. So I wore it today because when I think of her, and I think of her attitude, which was great, and when I think of how she dealt with all of these awful cards that she'd been given, it inspires me. I don't wear this too often because I don't want it to get worn out, but I do wear it on special occasions. Today is a special occasion. Today is the first day that we're filming in 2017. Can you believe it's 2017? Really? It's 2017. I'd like you, if you can, to take the story I've just told you. You can't have the jacket. I'm not sharing the jacket with anyone. But to think about the fact that this woman, with her 3 children dead, with her husband totally physically destroyed almost, with her struggles, would sit there and knit something so beautiful for me. I think we all need to strive to be a little bit more like her. What do you think? I think we all should strive to be inspired by those around us who do wonderful, wonderful things. I think 20 years on, I still think of that woman from time to time. I think of many. I think of the many people who've suffered loss. And I thank God that I'm one of those people who is able to help, to bring back something of those people that they have lost, to bring back messages of love and hope and joy. And so in the new year, I want you to be inspired if you can be, just as I am inspired. In this new year, I want you to go out there, whether you're a retrospective soul Dean, or whether you are a warrior, or whether you are a hunter, or whatever you are, whoever you are, I want you to be inspired by those people who suffer and who have devastation in their lives and still are able to rise up and to smile and to give of their love. That's it for today, I think. Do we have anything? Anyone wants to add anything here? Because I think I'm done. Do you think I've held up? Listen to this voice. It's sort of going. I'm going to have a big coughing fit once I leave. Almost now. Almost now.
Peggy just wanted to say it was a beautiful story and that life is the best teacher. Don't be sorry for your life lessons. Say thank you. It makes us the people we are, compassionate, empathetic, and loving.
Good. Empathetic, I think.
Empathetic,
yeah,
yes.
Not pathetic. Doesn't make us pathetic. Thank you, Peggy, for that. Thank you all. We shall see you next week. Do we know what subject we're going to have next week? Subject next week is going to be perhaps relationships. Are you in a relationship with someone and it's not working out? Are you contemplating divorce? Are you contemplating never speaking to someone again? Are you estranged from someone, perhaps someone you love dearly, but you don't know how to approach them or how to put things right? We're going to talk about all of these things and more besides. So until next week, from my spirit guide, Grey Eagle, from Carolyn, from me, Happy New Year.